So Frank had a question about a workshop that we did almost a year ago. So it's back here in August of last year. And let's see, it's the first workshop, or I should say the second workshop of the month. Yep. So he had a question, regarding the August 9th workshop. So isolating the first, second, or third trend signal. So his question is based off of this workshop here. If you, after watching this, if you would like a copy of the a copy of the BloodHound file and NinjaTrader's chart template, just send me an email and I'll send them to you. As the title implies, what this workshop was focusing on is, quite often when you're in a trend, your system may fire off, several signals while you're in that trend. And so this helps you kind of isolate which of those signals you actually want to trade off of. Because, as the trend continues, the more signals you get, typically those signals, like by the time you get to the third or the fourth signal in the same trend, the signals kind of get worse and worse, or I should say weaker and weaker, or the probability of a successful trade gets lower and lower, because the trend is eventually it's going to run its course and it's going to peak out, right? So that's kind of what this workshop was all about, to help you isolate which of those signals you want. And so I already loaded up this chart from that workshop here already. So now you can see there's already a couple of signals in here, and from looking at these signals, it looks like I built a simple system that kind of looks for price to retrace back to a moving average, and then essentially bounce off of this red moving average for a signal. And we were kind of isolating various signals as this trend moves along here. So Frank had a whole bunch of signals occurring real close to each other. So say, like, just to kind of set an example, Frank was getting like a bunch of signals like this. I guess where these green arrows were, Frank was getting kind of like these clusters of signals together, and then there would be a gap, and then you'd get another kind of cluster of signals such as this. So I'm gonna recreate another simple signal to kind of try and recreate this. And so what Frank wanted to do was essentially kind of eliminate these signals that are clustered close to the first signal in a group. So the ones that I circled, these are the ones that Frank wanted to eliminate. So essentially, to kind of simplify it, if a signal occurs, Frank wanted to eliminate all signals, after a set number of bars afterwards. So say, for example, if a signal came in, Frank wanted to eliminate, any signals 10 bars after that first one, and then wait for the next kind of group of signals to come in. And so that's what I'm going to focus on and build that into this. But first, what I'm going to do is build another signal system that's going to create a lot more signals than what I have on my chart now. So I have something practical to work with, so we're not just talking in theory. So I'm going to use the BBMACD to build this system. And also, let's see, I'm going to change my chart over to let's see, a 5 range. 10 days, yeah. And looks like I need to get some data here, so let me connect to the data feed. Alright, so I kind of found with this simple signal that I'm going to build that the 5 range works pretty good for this. And this is a signal that I kind of build for just doing some testing and stuff. Alright, so you can see since I opened up the workshop from last year, right, I still have all these solvers in here from last year. Let's see, I don't really want to rehash all this since it's already in a video, but I guess I will have to a little bit at some point to help explain what's going on. But I don't plan on going into a lot of detail since that workshop was already done. Plus, this was almost a year ago, so I don't really remember the details too well. You know, I'd have to kind of discover it on my again. You know, so maybe that would turn out to be a pretty good lesson here, is kind of discovering with you guys what each of these components again are doing, which will help you debug your system. Alright, so if you have a complex system and something's not working, you know, I guess going through and discovering what each of these components are doing is kind of a good, what's the right word, a good lesson to go through to help you debug your system here. Let's see, so I don't want to change this original system, so I'm just going to make a copy of this template here, make a copy of it, and I will give this a new name here. Let's see, how about if I just put today's date on it, for lack of a better name. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that. And also, I need to change the name of this of the BloodHound file, so I'm not overwriting that. So to rename this BloodHound file, I'm going to hit the change button here. And I'm just going to scroll down and click on the original file and then just paste in today's date. Okay. Alright, great. So I've got my BloodHound file renamed, and I've got a new template copy that I can work in. And so for now I'll just build this simple system here to give me a whole bunch of more signals than what I'm currently getting on the chart. So to do that, what I'm going to do is grab a comparison solver. So here's kind of how this system is going to work. I'm going to make sure that the BB or the MACD line is outside the band. So you can see right, so essentially you can see right here the MACD line is outside the band, and right here the MACD is outside the band. Alright, so when the MACD is outside the upper band, that's going to be a permissive to take longs only. And then what I'm going to do is I need to remove that white SMA line. And then what I'm going to do is wait for price to have a pullback on one bar. Let me make these bars a little bigger. And I need to find a good example here because there's no pullbacks on these bars. Alright, so here's an example. So right here, so you can see right there, the MACD line is outside the lower band. And up here in price, we kind of got this pullback, right? And then as soon as we get a bar reversing again, going in the direction of the trend, that's when we want to signal. So the MACD line is still out of the band. We got this little pullback, and then price starts moving down. So this is when we're going to get a little signal here. And typically, this usually fires off a whole bunch of signals. Maybe the 6B doesn't have enough volatility to give me as many signals as I'm looking for, but if it doesn't, I'll just switch over to the oil contract. That's a pretty volatile instrument. So the first thing I'm going to build is this condition on the MACD BB, looking for the MACD line to be outside of the bands. So let's connect this up. Alright, so indicator A is going to be our MACD line. So I'm going to switch this over to the BB MACD, and I'm just using the default settings here. So I want to make sure that we have the BB MACD line selected here as our plot. So that's already good. And then next, indicator B, we're going to set this to the bands, to the gray lines, right, the Bollinger Bands. So let's switch this over to the MACD BB line there. And I don't need to change any of the parameters. And next we need to set up the correct plots to use. So for a long, so I only want a long signal when the MACD line is outside the upper band. Right? So for long signals, I'm going to be using the upper band here. So we can see here on the right edge of the chart, the MACD line is outside the upper band. So I'm going to use the upper band or the upper plot for long signals, and I'm going to use the lower band to generate short signals, to calculate short signals, just as we see here where the arrow is. All right, and yeah, that should do it. And so there we go, just like that. So we can see whenever the MACD line is outside the lower band, we're getting short signals. And whenever it's outside the upper band, we're getting long signals there. Alright, so let's switch back. Let me pull up the interface. And now the next step in this simple system is to look for a reversal in price, or in other words, a inflection in price. What I'm going to be looking for. So I'm going to drop down a new inflection solver. Where is it? There we go. And this inflection solver is just simply going to be looking at the closing price. Yeah, so here we can see whenever price is reversing now, we're getting a long signal when price reverses up. And so whenever price is reversing like this, we're using the BB/MACD to kind of filter out those signals. So the next step is to join these together with an AND node. And there we go. Yeah, so I was hoping to get a bunch of signals clustering together like this, and like this on the short side here as well. All right. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to check the CL, the oil contract, and see how many signals that's generating. Well, I guess either contract will work, so I'll just stick with oils. So what we're wanting to do, or what Frank is wanting to do, is, so I'll use this short trend here. So when he gets this first signal coming in, you know, he's wanting to essentially kind of eliminate the signals that are coming in right after it for so many bars, and then kind of take the next signal and once again eliminate so many signals afterwards, so that what he would see on his chart are essentially the two signals that I have marked here within this one downtrend movement. So that way he's not seeing all these signals here. So that's what we're going to work on here. Alright, so before we get started, I think I saw some questions coming in regarding this, and also I guess I'll kind of have to give a cursory overview of how this is working here. Let's see. Alright, so Mike was asking MA2 flat. Gosh, Mike, that question must have come in a while ago. So I'm not sure what you're referring to with your MA2 flat question. Let's see, Celso is asking, why is the OR box not connected? Well, let's see. what is this doing? This might have been a, let's see, I'm not, you know, I didn't label this OR box like I did with this OR box. You know, I labeled this OR box here as essentially as my signals. Right, you can see it's labeled up here as my signals coming in. So I know that these two solvers are kind of generating the signals. And then this AND node, I labeled it as my filters. So it looks like I have all of these nodes or solvers down here as applying filters for these signals here. So if I let me connect up this OR node here with all my signals. If you look at the chart, yeah, so you can see, you know, there's just a whole bunch of signals coming in from the OR node, and so this AND node is just kind of applying the filters here. So if I connect this up, yeah, we can see that it filters a lot of that noise out. And so let's see, this OR node here, I connected it up, and it looks like I built I think I built a modified bar direction solver system. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's what this is doing here, that OR node. Because what happens is with the bar direction, you have to have some kind of body. The bar has to have a body for the bar direction to work. So if you're on a range chart like this, right, sometimes you get these dojis where there's no body. So like this bar right here, right, there's no body, so the bar direction is blank. And so this OR node kind of built a bar direction system. I'm thinking that's what I did. Although we're getting a, let's see, oh yeah. So since the doji is at the low of the bar, I guess I built it to consider that this would be a down bar. Versus, let's see if I can find another doji here. So, oh, sorry about that. Let me turn that off. And here we go. So this bar right here, we can see that the open and close is at the top of the bar, and so this was considered an up bar. So I think that's what this OR node was doing. So, all right, let me move the chart back over. All right, so we're working there. All right, so this, all of this right here is the old, or the other signal, and we don't need this anymore. So let me just move it out of the way like that, and I'll move this new one in here like this. And let's see. Yep, I'm gonna have to just disconnect all these leaders and connect that up. Like so. Alright, so as I zoom in here, we can see that I labeled each of these function nodes to help us understand what each of these nodes are doing here. So it looks like this one is labeled it the first signal in the trend. So let's kind of go back to our chart here. Let me shrink this up a little bit. And I'm going to start marking all the signals right now, kind of in their raw, unfiltered mode. Right, so let me switch back over to our system. Right, so I just have this system here just connected, the signals just connected straight up to the result node, so there's no filtering going on right now. And I should name this as our signals. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark all of these on the chart. Actually, I'm going to mark them up here. I'm going to mark these so I know where these original signals are lying. So that's why this toolbar is so handy to have. Okay, so now that I know where the unfiltered signals are at, now what I can do is I can start connecting up each of these function nodes and see what's occurring here. And oh, so here is something else that I need to replace here. So you can see I've got this solver here. As we look at this solver, you see it's connected up to the resets of it's connected up to the resets of each of these function nodes. So this essentially, what this one's doing is it's determining when the trend is over and starts. So when the trend ends, it's resetting each of these function nodes to kind of reset the signal counting again. So the way all of these function nodes were set up was to help you filter out signals during the immediate trend. So we needed a solver that determined when the trend began and when the trend ended. So I will have to replace this with another solver. So let's going to take a look at this real quick. So if we look at this solver here that's determining when the trend begins and ends, we can see that actually, if I look at this solver, it's a inflection solver, and I'm looking at the EMA 55 as I named it, and this red moving average is our EMA 55. So we can see whenever it reverses down, it started a new downtrend, and when the moving average reverses up, that essentially is signaling that the downtrend is over. So that's what this is doing, is it's determining when the trend is over, and it's resetting each of these function nodes. So since we're using, in this simple system, I'm using the MACD, the BB MACD, to determine the trend. So let's see, I'm going to build a new solver here to replace this one. And what I'm going to do, let's see, I think I'm going to use a crossover solver and look for when the MACD line is crossing over the band. Yeah, so let's build that. So I'm just taking a look at where all these leaders are going. So it looks like I'm connected into each of these resets here. Okay. So I'll just go through and disconnect each of these. And I know now I can give this kind of a better name. So there, I just rename that. I'll just get it out of the way. So what I'm going to be doing is building a new trend reset logic here. So I'm going to be using the BB MACD, and so to think this through, all right, so if we look at the chart, I can see that when the MACD line crosses up over the lower band, then I want a long signal out of this to signify that the downtrend is over. So I'm looking for a long output to signify that the downtrend is over. So I'm going to use the lower band to get a long signal, and I'm going to use the upper band to get a short signal. And all right, and I should name this. So I'm looking for the MACD to cross over the BB, the Bollinger Band lines, and for some reason my chart is not updating, so I'm just going to refresh it manually. Alright, so there we go. So we got a long signal when our MACD line crossed above the Bollinger Band, and we got a short signal when the MACD line crossed down the upper band. So this is what we're going to be using to reset all those function nodes to tell us that the trend is over. So the next step is just to connect this up to each of these resets. Alright, so now let's take a look at what's coming out of this solver here, which, there we go. So now it's working correctly. So as you remember, I marked, you know, each of the bars that had the unfiltered signals, and so we can see now the right, our first signal now is being filtered out, and all the rest are being eliminated. And then when we get an uptrend starting, we got this first signal coming through. And let's take a look back here. Yeah, so once again here on this uptrend, we got the first signal, and I'm thinking we probably should have gotten this signaled as well. Let's take a look here. Yeah, so what I'm seeing here is that since the MACD line crossed below the upper band, right, we got this reset, this short output that reset this long trend, and so I should be getting a signal here as well. And I'm not, so let me kind of figure out what's going on here. So I'm going to take a look at how this solver is set up. I think what I want is the reset opposite signal. Yeah, reset opposite signal. There we go. So let me explain why I needed the reset opposite signal. So when we look at the raw signals here, the unfiltered signals, right? We're getting a long output, so we're in a uptrend. And if we look at this solver, which is providing this solver here is kind of telling us when the trend is over. And you see, so it's giving us short signals, which are opposite the long signal. All right, so it's giving us a short output, which is opposite of the long output. So I'm using I was using a short output to reset this function node. And since we're in a uptrend, we're getting long outputs, so a short signal is the opposite, right, of the current state. So that's why I needed to turn this reset opposite signal to true, because we're using a short signal. We're using a short signal coming into the reset to reset when we're in a long trend. And I believe I probably need to turn this off. Let's make sure it still looks good. And it does. Yep. So we can see that we're getting a bunch of long signals here, and that's because the Bollinger Band is just moving in and out of this upper band, essentially resetting our trend direction a whole lot. So yeah, I guess not much I can do about that. I'll just have to find some areas in the chart that kind of give us a better ideal working condition. So I won't use this long trend here as an example. We'll kind of stick with this short trend right over here as a better example. Alright, so we were able to determine, as the name suggests, that what's coming out of this function node is the first signal in the trend, and only the first signal. Now I'm assuming by the name I gave this one's going to provide us with the second signal in the trend. Let's connect this up. And if we look at this, yep, here we go. So now we got the second signal in the trend. And if we look at this one, it's probably going to provide us the third signal. So as the name suggests, it's providing us the third signal. And as we look at the chart, that's what we're getting. All right. So what Frank is wanting to do is when there's a cluster of signals like this, right, we're wanting to kind of eliminate so many signals afterwards. Well, also, hold on, let me so here's kind of another component that I haven't explained yet. So essentially what's happening is we're wanting like the first, second, and third signal in the trend. So what I need to do is connect each of these to an OR node. So this is really kind of what we're looking for, is we want to allow the first, second, and third signal in the trend to come through. However, we don't want signals that are bunched too close together. So these are bunched too close together. So we prefer to see this first signal and then wait for a certain period afterwards, and then the next one that comes along would be our second signal, and then essentially block another set of bars afterwards and wait for a third signal to come along. So what we'd want to do is essentially block the signals that these rectangles are covering over. And so that is what the question was. How do you block signals that are clustered together like this, so that you can space your first and second and third signal apart? All right, so we want to add some spacing between them. So I think the way we're going to have to do this is, right, so this group over here, right, is generating our second and third signal. And you can see what we have to do is modify the signals that are coming in here. So if I, let me go back to the chart. So I'm going to mark, so this is our third signal, right, in the trend. And that's coming from here, from this leader right here. So if I disconnect this leader, right, we can see this third signal disappeared. So what I need to do is modify I need to modify what's coming in to this solver here. I need to modify that. And I'll have to do the same thing for this solver here, right? So these two solvers are isolating the second signal coming in. So if I disconnect this leader, right, now we can see it disconnected that second signal. So I will have to I will have to modify what's coming in here. All right, let me just line these up again. All right, so let me just thinking this through right now. My initial thought was to apply some, is to use this and build a system that will block signals so many bars after. All right, yeah. So I've got an idea forming in my head. So I'm going to use what's coming out of, So I'm going to use what's coming out of here. All right, so what's coming out of here is our first signal. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a continuous set of signals coming out for so many bars. And I'll use that to try and modify what's coming into this set here. So let's see. Let me take. I'm going to take the signal extender. Alright, so what I'll do for this example is we'll block 10 bars after this first signal. So you can see now I've got an output here that's 10 bars long, and I can use this output to block what's going into these function nodes here. And alright, so what am I going to use to block that? I think the XOR node will be the simplest way. So I'm going to route what's coming out of the signal extender. Let me change the name here. So alright, so now I kind of name this, kind of tell me what it's doing, and I'm going to route this into this XOR node. and then route our signals into the XOR node. And now let's take a look at what's coming out of the XOR node. So if we take a look at what's coming out of the XOR node, you notice see how there's no output on where the arrows are. Remember, the arrows are identifying where our short signals are, right? So there's no signal there. However, we're getting signals in between, so the XOR node is not working. Alright, so let's try something else. I think in this case I'll use the if-then. Let's test out the if-then. I'll put this if-then right here, and let me zoom in here so we can kind of read what's going on. All right, so on the if-then, the if node, or the if connection point, that's what kind of controls the switch. So if-then is kind of like a switch. So it's switching between then going to the output or else going to the output. All right, so if so what I'm doing is, right, the output from this node, which we can see on the chart, right? So this output is what will be controlling the switch of the if-then. And I will take our signal and well, let me back up and explain the if-then a little bit more. So the if-then, essentially when you have a signal coming into it, right? When you have this short output coming into it, think of that as kind of like a true state, true or false, right? So when there's no short signal, that's kind of a false state, and when there is a short signal, that's kind of a true state. So when a signal is coming in, so when we have this short signal coming in, the then node is routed to the output. When there is no short signal coming in, the else node is routed to the output. So I'm going to take our signals, plug it into the then node, and let's take a look at this output now. There we go. So you see how these three signals were allowed to come through, but this fourth one, these guys didn't come through because of what's coming out of here. So let me draw a rectangle that kind of represents the signal here. And let's change the color on this. And we'll take a look at the if-then output. So we can see that the only signals that are getting through is when the if-then has a short state signaled into it. And you can also see these these long signals coming through as well. So let's take a look. over here. So we can see all these outputs, this long output that's coming out of our signal extender right here. So let me color these appropriately. Okay, so I've marked the long outputs coming from our signal extender, right, which is controlling the switch in the if-then. So now when I take a look at what's coming out of the if-then, so now we can see why these long signals are coming through here. So I know now that I can use this if-then to essentially kind of block so many signals, or 10 bars. I can block 10 bars after the first signal comes in. So let's recap that again. But, well, first, so let me back up here. Since we're trying to eliminate these two signals, right, because they're too close to our first signal, what I need to do is actually switch nodes here. So I need to plug this into the else. And so now you can see that the signals after what we want to block. So we want to block signals that are, identified by this red triangle. And then we want to allow the signals afterwards to come through. So I needed to use the else node instead. And so if I pull this back here, and I can connect the if-then to this input. So remember, these two nodes here are what's isolating the second signal in the trend. So let's take a look at what's coming through here. All right, you see what's happening here? I'm looking at the signals coming out of the if-then, and if we see here, this guy is essentially kind of our first signal coming in, and this one's our second one coming in as far as what's coming out of this node here. So when I take a look here, right, it's identifying this as the second signal instead of this one. So, Alright, so what I need to do is I need to kind of go back to this signal extender node here. Let's take a look. And what's happening is you can see the first signal here is being marked in a sense. So we have an output here. So what I need to do is kind of shift these signals forward one so that we don't have a signal on this, so we don't have an output on this first signal here. So let's drop in a look back here. So we'll drop in a look back. So let's take a look at this look back. So see how the look back shifted the signal by 1 bar forward? So if we look at the original signal coming in, right, it's right here on the arrow. And if we look at this look back, see how I shifted it forward 1? So I can use this look back, put that look back into the signal extender, and now we can see, right, this block of signals was shifted forward by 1 bar, right? And since I did that, I'm going to reduce the number of signals coming out, the number of outputs here. There we go. So I've modified this now and shifted it forward 1. Alright, so let's take a look at what's coming out of the if then now. Yeah, alright, good. So we have our first signal coming through, and then these next two are essentially being blocked, and then we got our second signal coming through and a third one. So now if we take a look at the second signal isolator, now it should be working correctly. There we go. So now this is working correctly. So we got our first signal coming through, and then now we're blocking, right, the next group of signals that are coming in, right, essentially within 9 bars afterwards, and then allowing a second signal in the trend to come through. So let's take a look at what's coming out of the OR node. So this is what we were looking for. So we got our first signal coming in, and once again we're kind of blocking, we're blocking the next couple of signals coming in that are just too close to the first one, right, and then allowing the second one to come through. And let's see, if we wanted to allow a third one to come through, essentially we would kind of have to build the same set of logic here for these nodes that are allowing the third signal to come through. Let's so let me take a look at this if-then node again. And think I'm going to have to find a better example on the chart in order to build the same set of logic after the second signal here. So let me kind of scan through the chart and see if that ever happens. And yeah, it might just be happening right here. All right. Yeah, it looks like I have a nice long downtrend right here. So maybe this section of the chart might work. Alright, so before I continue, let me kind of check to see if any comments come in. So yes, this is being recorded. They're always being recorded. So you'll be able to find this up on YouTube later on. Just a quick note on last Friday's workshop, I'm having an issue again with Adobe Premiere Pro's crashing on trying to export the recording, so I'm trying to get that worked through. So I'll get next week's recording up as soon as I can get that figured out. Sorry guys, I'm just kind of reading through these. Let's see. Alright, so I don't see any questions directly on this. So I'll try and kind of wrap this up here quickly and get to some of the other questions that are coming in on different stuff. Alright, so I'm gonna let's take a look again at our signals. Oh, actually first thing I'll need to do is mark all of my signals here. Alright, we've got them all marked. So these are the raw unfiltered signals coming in. And let's build a couple of rectangles here identifying when signals are being filtered out. And So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of checking various points in the system here to see what's going on. Alright, so as we look at it now, we have our first signal coming in, and then we have these next two being blocked, and then we're allowing the second one to kind of come through. And so what we want to do is kind of block another set. Oops. So we'll want to block these next two coming in and allow this third one. So the ones that I've circled are the ones that we want, and these others are the ones that we don't want because they're occurring too soon after. Alright. So let's take a look at what's coming out of this set of nodes here. So now what I need to do is essentially after this second signal comes out, I need to build another set of outputs to block these two. Here. And essentially I just need to follow this logic right here. I can just essentially just copy this logic right here and connect this node up to it. So let me drop down a look back, and I'll drop down another signal extender. And I'm going to take this leader out, connect it down here, connect this up, connect that up. I need to change this to 9 so it matches this other node up here. Okay, so I can see that our output here, our short output, is matching matching our rectangle here. So this will block these two signals. It'll block these two shorts right here. Alright, and let's see, I guess let's see, copy these up here. This is definitely getting a little messy. Let's pull these out of the way. And I'm going to need another if-then node. Oops. Okay, just as I connected the signal into the else, let me zoom in here. You can see how I connected the signals coming out of the AND node. I connected to the else, so I'm going to do the same thing up here. And the if node, right? The if connection point is connected to our signal extender here. So I will have to do the same thing. I will take this signal extender, connect it back to that if node, or that if connection point, and me rename this here. There. All right, I'm going to take a look at the output of the if-then. Great, so the output of this if-then oh, okay. So what I'm seeing here is I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 signals coming out of this. And that's not what I want. I just want to see signal 1, and I want to see this one as signal 2, and I want to see this one as signal 3. So I don't want to see, we don't want to see these two guys, these two signals. So I think what I'll have to do is, instead of grabbing the signals from, let's see, from the AND node, I think I want to see what's coming out of this if-then. Let's see. Yes, I believe so. Alright, so let's connect the output into the else. There. So now I've got signal 1, signal 2, and signal 3 here. Alright, yeah, that's what I want to see. So let's connect this output in to this set of nodes here. So remember, this set of nodes up here is isolating our third signal in the trend. And let's take a look. Great, so we can see now the third signal is being isolated here. So now let's take a look. Alright, so this is essentially what we were trying to accomplish. So we got the first signal coming in. We're blocking the next couple right afterwards for 9 bars afterwards. Then we have our second signal coming in and blocking the next signals coming in right afterwards. And then we got our third signal coming in. Yeah, so that's it. That's we completed this question, or this task. I know this got pretty. It's got really complex in working through some of this logic. So I hope you guys understood this, and of course you'll be able to watch this later on to understand what's going on. You know, but I guess, you know, kind of the point I was trying to make in looking through all this is that, you know, when you're trying to build something, you know, more and more complex, you know, the way you understand, you know, the way your system is working is you know, you take a look at the output of all these various, you know, points, and that's how you can kind of troubleshoot what's going on. So, all right. Let me put this back in a proper state. All right, and as soon as I shut the interface, close the interface, it's going to save it. Okay, there. All right, let me get to some of these other questions that came in here. So give me a moment just to kind of read through. Warren has a question here. He's asking, what solver nodes and what logic nodes would I use to tell Raven to buy when the high of bar touches my moving average, which is, he's got an SMA 15. So let me back up here. So what solver nodes and what logic nodes would I use to tell Raven to buy when the high of a bar touches my moving averages, trigger, and sell when my low of the bar touches my moving average, trigger? Let's find an example on this chart here. So I think what Warren is asking is when when can we get Raven to trigger when the bar touches, when the high of the bar touches the moving average. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this, and I guess the question is, does the bar just want to touch, or is it okay if it breaks it? So kind of the simplest way to look at this is, let's see, let's put, well, we're going to have to use SI Raven. So we'll use I'm sorry, not Raven. We're going to use Chameleon to get the prices, the high price and the low price of the bar. So I'm going to build a new set of logic here. And I'm going to use the comparison solver. Alright, so indicator A is going to be our high and our low prices. So the way I'm going to get the high and the low prices is jump down here to Chameleon, and I'll set Chameleon on here. And let's see, so I'm going to use the high. Let me move this out of the way. So essentially, when I think typically how you're going to want to use this is when price is moving up to our moving average, we're looking for the high to touch that moving average, right, to typically go short. So quite often this is used as kind of like a bounce trade. So we're going to want to get a short from the high and the opposite for the low price. So we want to get a long for the low price. So that's how we set up Chameleon. And then next we need to set indicator B to our moving average. And in this case, since I already have the EMA on the chart, I will use the EMA and set this to the 55. And, oh, I didn't set something up right, did I? So I need to go through and adjust the outputs here. So I need to reverse my outputs here. And I can see that I'm going to have to build in some more, some filtering as well. Because I don't want all these this long output. all these long signals here. Let's see. So let me think of a way to filter that out. Well, first let me show you another technique that can be used. So we can use this neutral output as well. So this is kind of another technique first. Let me show you this first. Now this neutral output here is essentially, it's controlled by the small amount. So I need to specify, you know, like how many ticks, and let's just let's say 3 ticks, and this large amount should always be bigger or the same as the small amount. So I'm going to put this 3 ticks up here as well. And what that does is this neutral area kind of creates a range. So I'm going to have to hit refresh the chart again. So we can see here on the chart what happened is the closing price, right? This closing price, I'm going to mark it, or I'm sorry, the high. We're using the high, so I'm marking the highs of the bars. And you can see how they're within 3 ticks of being above or below our moving average, and they're getting marked with a long signal. So that's kind of what that neutral output does. So this neutral output, essentially I created a range of 3 ticks. So we can see the this output here now reads you know, A greater than B by 3 ticks and A less than B by 3 ticks. So this neutral area is in between this 3 tick area, or this 3 tick zone, and we can see that on the chart here. So that's one way that you can set up, right, a signal for Raven to take a trade when price is moving, or when price is moving up to your moving average, right? So in this case, when it's our high price and low price, we can see, like here on this bar, this low, the low of the bar is within 3 ticks of our moving average, and so we got a a long output here, or a long signal. And since I'm using a 5 range, because I'm using a 5 range bar on this guy, the low and the high, they're both within 3 ticks of our moving average. So that's why BloodHound gave us a long and a short signal on the same bar. So, you know, depending on the bar that you're using, you may want to knock this down to 2 ticks here, 2 ticks. So there we go, knocking it down to 2 ticks. Now there's no signal. No signal on this bar anymore. Alright, so I hope that answers Warren's question. Andrew is asking, how do I set the display unrealized profit and loss in dollars and not in points? Let's see. So Andrew, are you talking about Raven? Let's see. Andrew also goes on to say there is no display of any positions, realized profit loss on the strategy tab in the control center. All right, so for Raven, what you see on the interface is what you get. There are no detailed settings. There's no detailed settings for Raven right now. So everything's just kind of locked in. So later on, we'll build in more adjustable parameters for Raven, such as what NinjaTrader has. But for right now, the way it is, it's just kind of locked in. Like eventually we'll kind of add some things like, like the ability to change the font size and things like that as well. Let me read your second question again, Andrew. So you're saying there's no display of any positions, realized profit loss on the strategy tab of the control center. Let's take a look. So let me just add today's add today's BloodHound system here, and we'll get Raven to fire off a couple of trades for us. Let's see, I should name this logic template here. Alright, so we'll just use this simple I don't want to have to wait for another signal to come in, so let me build another. Oh shoot, look at that. I would have gotten another long signal. Alright, let's just set that up real quick. And
order pending.
So you notice here I got two BloodHound buttons on the chart, and you notice one of them has a black text. So this is BloodHound that's on the chart, and the orange one is Raven. So now you can differentiate between which one is BloodHound and which one is Raven on these chart buttons on here. Alright, so the question was, let's see, on the strategy tab, Andrew is saying that there's no, let's see, there's no display of any positions realized profit loss on the strategy tab. Alright, so realized, we're looking at this guy. Yeah, so the unrealized is working. I guess we gotta wait for this trade to close out. And let's see what happens here. So another new feature with this update, right? So this update has limit orders in it now, and so you'll see with the limit orders, right? There's 4 extra buttons now. These top buttons are going to submit market orders, and these 4 buttons down here are going to submit limit orders at either the ask or the bid. So while we're waiting on this price to get out of this trading range and execute another bar, let me pull up the update notice, and So this announcement here of BloodHound being updated to version 1.205. So kind of the key update on this is limit orders for Raven. Right. So this screenshot of the chart is right. So it's showing a long order, a long signal was fired off, and so a long order or a buy order was submitted at a limit price, and so we're waiting for price to come down and pick up this limit order here to go long again. And so here on Raven's interface, right, so I circled the 4 new buttons here that will submit limit orders, and then I already had mentioned that the Raven's BloodHound button is now colored orange, so you can tell the difference between BloodHound as an indicator versus BloodHound as inside of Raven. Oh. And boy, it looks like oil is just dead. Alright, hopefully I can get price to move into a profit or a loss, and I'll close it out here in just a moment. Dan, maybe I should have you do one of these workshops. So Dan let me know that if you click in the display box here, you can see now how it's rotating between the 3 different display types. So we have percentage, and now we have ticks, right? Profit and loss in ticks. I'm clicking again, and so it's just a single click, and now it's in dollars. So yeah, great. All right. Well, I will have to add that to this quick little write-up here. So I'll add that in. Thanks, Dan. And I'll have to talk to Jeremy and see what other kind of neat little things he might have slipped in there that I don't know about. All right, so hey, look at that. We're up $50. Come on. Oh, I'm on a 3-minute chart. Sorry about that. That's why. Okay, let's close this out. So let's close that out. And there you go. So Andrew, there's the realized profit showing up. So Andrew, if it's not showing up on your end, I don't know, you might want to seek NinjaTrader support guidance to find out what kind of setting might not be happening here, not be showing up. Because this, whatever is displayed in the control center is, it's all controlled by NinjaTrader settings. So there, Andrew. So I just kind of show that it is working here. All right, let me switch this over to a 5-range chart. And all right, let's get through some more of these questions. Okay, next Mike would like to know if the moving average is too flat, it generates too many signals. Block signals when the moving average is flat. All right. Let's see. Let's So let me load up. I'm going to change my chart template here. All right, so what we want to figure out here is when the moving average is kind of flat, like there and there. So we'll start with a slope solver. And I'll switch this over to my EMA. All right, change it to the 55 period. And if we look at the output settings here, let me pull this out. Right, we can see that if I set this maximum slope to 0.05, we can see how the output in direction is defaulted here with a 1 and a 1. And if we read the description, it says greater than 0.05 ticks, and then at 0.05 ticks. And see these bottom two still state when it's at 0 ticks or less than 0 ticks. So these bottom two parameters are working with the minimum slope setting, but the default output is they're set to 0. And we can see the upper two parameters here, which are defaulted with a 1 on the output, are working with the maximum slope setting here. So, and I can see that it's still not updating my chart in real time. So I'm just manually refresh the chart. Right, so now we can see that there's no signal here when our moving average is flat. So when our moving average kind of flattens out there. So that's how we can isolate signals when the moving average is kind of flat. Is you just build this one solver and essentially connect it to the rest of your system with a AND node. So you just plug this into an AND node, and then the rest of your system can plug in to the other node here. So how about if I make this this simple, right, inflection signal here? Let's take a look at this simple inflection signal. I'll switch this over to the closing price, and there we go. So there's all of those signals here. Yeah, so here's all these signals coming from price that's reversing up and down, up and down. And if I connect these two together, so now we can see that right in here we're not getting any signals when the moving average is kind of flat. So let me mark on the chart right here. So here's when all the these long signals can occur. So we can see that the long signals that we're getting are only in that area when the moving average has that 0.5 tick slope occurring. All right, so I think that answers Mike's question there. Let's see, so Mike was asking, do you have to choose a logic? There's more than one logic node. You have to choose one. Let's see, Mike, I'm not sure what context you're asking your question in. You know, if you want to work in the logic tab, then yes, you have to choose one, or you can make a new logic, right? You can just click on the new button there and start a whole new logic tab if you wish. Let me delete this one. You know, or if you already have a logic template set up like this, and you want to make some changes to it, but you don't want to change the master, right? Then I can click the copy button, and now I can see I have the original up here, and then I have a copy that I can work with. Right, so I could start modifying this copy here. So I'll just, you know, rearrange the nodes there, and then I can see if I switch back to the original is still in place, and I switch back to this one. So one thing to note, guys, keep this in mind. So this logic template and this logic template are sharing the same slope solver. They're sharing the same slope solver. So, right, let's take a look at the name. So, see, I haven't named this slope solver yet. It just has its default name. So if I switched over to the copy, and if I go in here and give this a proper name, like so. Now if I switch back to the original, you see how it modified the same solver? So that's the same solver. So if you make a copy, just be aware that, you know, if you modify your solvers in one of these logic templates, it's going to modify them. It's going to modify, you know, this one solver that across all of your logic templates. So if you don't want that to happen, you just have to create, you just have to add a new slope solver and just start working with the new slope solver. So if I go in here and change this to 0.7, like a maximum slope of 0.7, and then I take a look at my copy, well, it changed it, the solver and the copy as well, because it's the same solver. So what I would have to do is just start, if I don't want that to happen, I can just remove this one and start a new one, and do like so. Alright, so I just built a new slope solver real quick with a 0.7 slope on it. And this is in my copy, right? This is in my copy. And so if I go back to the original, I can see that this one, well, that's right, I forgot to set it back, sorry. But I can see the name here, right? I didn't change this one. So let me switch back to the copy. And right, this is still 0.7. And now if I look at my master list of solvers here, I can see now I have this EMA 55.05, and I have another slope solver on here. So now I'm working with two different slope solvers. That's it. Let me, I'll delete that guy. And if I go in here and if I change the name of this inflection solver to, I'll just call it price inflection, right? So if I modify this on the solver tab, it's also going to modify it in all of my logic tabs as well. So you see how the name changed here. And if I go to, if I take a look at the original logic template, it changed the name right here as well. So it's something to be aware of there, guys. All right, so let me go back to Andrew's question here. So all right, so back to Andrew's question about looking at the realized profit and loss in a strategy. You know, he's saying that, so Andrew's saying he uses an ATM, he fires off an ATM inside of Raven, and the, right, so when an ATM closes, the realized profit and loss is not showing up in the strategy tab here. And yes, you know, I've noticed that too, and I haven't. So once again, that's going to be a NinjaTrader setting. You know, Raven cannot control what shows up in this strategy window. You know, it can't control what shows up in the execution. You know, this is all controlled by the back end of NinjaTrader. And I haven't looked into that yet to find out if there is a way to show the realized profit and loss when firing off an ATM. I don't know if there's a setting that can be turned on to show that. Yeah, you know, I guess, Andrew, I'll just ask that you talk to the guys at NinjaTrader regarding that, and see if there's a setting to turn that on. Great, guys. Hey, I'll wrap it up there.